Thank you, Liz, and thank you everyone for, thank you to all our panelists, and great to see such a lovely audience. I hope that you're really enthused by our recent Meet the Funders Spring event. And so this is the first of our Meet the Funders community workshops, and here we go. So my name is Jane Yeomans. Let me just, Daniel, do I have my screen already shared?
Your screen isn't sharing, but you should have the availability to do it.
Okay. Share screen, right. Okay. So here we go. Right. Okay. So my name is Jane Yeomans, and are we sharing? Is my screen being shared?
Yeah. Well, it's on the whole. It hasn't gone to the main one. If you click the at the bottom, there is the best place, isn't it, Daniel?
Yeah, so I think because Jane has multiple screens, it's sharing the screen that isn't presenting the slideshow. So I would just click through the slides like that, as you've got them there, Jane. So
I'm okay to start. So, apologies to our audience. Right. Okay. So you can each see my screen. You can see my slides on my screen.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Right. So my name. Apologies. My name is Jane Yeomans, and I'm project manager for Transformation Cornwall, and we strengthen faith-based social action in Cornwall. We partner in this Meet the Funders programme with the Diocese of Truro, and the Meet the Funders programme has been going for about, well, actually, it's been going for 9 years, because next year is our 10th anniversary. And the whole point of the Meet the Funders programme is to take you every step of the way through developing, funding and sustaining your community action project. So I'm going to go on to my presentation today is vision, mission and values. And I'm going to start by looking at an overview of what we're going to be looking at. Right, okay, so session overview. I'm going to look at why we need to set a vision. What is a vision statement? Top tips for writing a vision statement, and look at developing your mission and knowing your values. But my aim here is to explore vision, mission and values enough to leave you knowledgeable, inspired and confident enough to either start and develop your vision, mission and values from scratch, or to update and review your existing vision. And this might include dusting off or hunting down something that you're sure your organisation has somewhere. So, first of all, why set a vision? This is a fundamental part of your project. Now, setting your vision, it's a first stage process and fundamental to your future. I've put the picture there of the stabilisers here, because I would really strongly advise you to do this at the beginning. But for those who are developing existing projects, this is a great opportunity to review something that your organisation has already created. And if you think of this as this process as like stabilisers, the strong foundation of your project, and also recognise that if you're able to start strongly, you carry that strength, clarity and training with you, and you'll get an easier ride out of it. This is something to do before you get to the starting block, before you for the project that is ahead of you. And it's a fundamental thing to do at the first stage. You're going to be sharing your vision a lot of times with your congregation, with your community, your funders, your customers, your family, and also yourself. So it's important to ask yourself and set aside some time and ask yourself, is your vision clear? So a vision is the bigger picture. It's an aspirational description of what the organisation would like to achieve or accomplish in the midterm or long-term future. It serves as a clear guide for choosing current and future courses of action and gives a context for all decision-making. And it ensures that decision-making is in accordance with what the organisation wants to achieve. Your vision statement will tell those inside and outside of your church the reason for its existence. In no more than 2 sentences, the vision statement explains your specific long-term goal of your ministry, where you are going and what you wish to accomplish. Your vision statement provides cohesion, motivation, and unity of purpose. And sharing a common vision and purpose will make a group more successful. I've put here that Transformation Cornwall's vision is to see faith in action at the heart of flourishing communities in Cornwall. I've also put that statement on a pedestal, and that's kind of not a bad idea, really, because what you're looking to do is you're looking to hold that vision statement so that your ministry staff and your church members never lose sight of it. As a result, all of the decisions made by the staff and the church members are consistently aligned with that vision. Now, top tips for writing a vision statement, and I've broken this down into 5 top tips. So firstly, be concise. This is not the place to stuff a document with fluff statements. It should be simple, easy to read, and cut to the essentials so that it can be set to memory and be repeated by different members accurately. Secondly, be clear. A good rule of thumb for clarity is to focus on one primary goal rather than trying to fill the document with a scattering of ideas. One clear objective is also easier to focus on and achieve. Focus on the future. You're setting out what your hopes are and dreams are for the future. It is your carrot ahead of you. It gives direction and sets out what you're aiming for. Be stable. The vision statement is a long-term goal that shouldn't be affected by changes of technology, people, fashions, or markets. Be challenging. You don't want to be timid in setting the goals for your vision. Your objective shouldn't be too easy to achieve, but also it shouldn't be too unrealistic to be discarded. Be inspiring. Create something bigger that will rally the troops and be desirable as a goal for involving all of those in the project. So if I were going to take 3 things away from my 6 tips here, I would say be clear, be concise, and above all, be inspiring. So develop your mission. Now, your vision statement doesn't explain how you'll reach your vision. That's the job of your mission statement. Your mission statement is a broad statement of what the organisation will do in pursuit of its vision. A mission statement describes how you'll achieve your vision. It does not state an outcome. It contains no time limit or measurement and describes what you do, for whom you do it, and the benefit it will bring. I've put here our Transformation Cornwall mission is to strengthen faith-based social action in Cornwall. Know your values. Now, values explain the underlying belief of the organisation in relation to the work to be done. They are the principles of what you stand for, how you treat people, and the basis for your decisions and your actions. Transformation Cornwall's values are built around fairness, respect for each other, trust in ourselves and our communities, respect, integrity, and inclusivity. Now, I'm going to look at an example of a vision and values within an organisation, and I've picked the Trussell Trust. So we have been doing a lot of work with our wonderful food banks in Cornwall, and a number of the food banks, both in Cornwall and nationally, come under the run under the umbrella of the Trussell Trust. So I thought I'd look at their vision and their values to explain more. Now, the Trussell Trust vision is for a UK without the need for food banks. Their values are compassion, justice, community, and dignity. So compassion, Trussell stands in solidarity with people that need the help of food banks. They put the well-being of people served by food banks above everything else. Justice. Trussell are motivated by a desire to see a more just society. Trussell believes it's not right that anyone is facing hunger and poverty, and that everyone should have enough income to afford the essentials. Community. Trussell believes that we all share the responsibility to support one another in our communities, and that to create change, we must work together for a fairer society. Dignity. Trussell recognise the innate value of each individual person and seek to prioritise the other person's needs and concerns in the spirit of mutuality and friendship, regardless of background. So that's Trussell, their vision and their values. For me, that shows solidity, that they're mighty, that they're galvanised, unwavering, inspiring, trustworthy, and inspirational. They also make me want to get involved with my time or money, learn and hear more, and join with them. Also going to look at an example of how to develop a vision. And I've chosen an example project here of a church hall refurbishment. Now, are you trying to renovate this hall as it's a bit shabby? Or is a renovated hall vital for undertaking the work that your vision calls for? So your people, and by that I mean your congregation, your community, your project team and funders, may not really mind or care that your hall is a bit shabby. They might even recognise the fact that it is, but they aren't necessarily looking to do anything about it right now. But they can be motivated and inspired by your vision. They can understand that your project is worthwhile, and they can also be inspired with what you can achieve with a renovated hall. Here's the difference. So number one, St Barnabas Church Hall Committee would like to refurbish our hall so that we can hire it out to more people in our parish. We'd like to get new chairs, tables and curtains, install a new heating system, update our toilet facilities and install a kitchen area. All very valid. Or our vision is to develop St Barnabas Church Hall into a place of light, warmth and welcome, so we can better share our space to meet the spiritual and social needs of the whole community. To enable that, we need, and then one would talk about the heating, the lighting, the kitchenette area. Now, I'm going to set you some homework, but I'm not going to be checking it, but it's just to get you going and get you started. What I'm looking for here is not a finalised project, but I'd like a list of key words for each one. I'll set out a summary with some tasks to get you and your team started. So take time to think yourselves and discuss with your team. So vision, it's the bigger picture, providing cohesion, motivation and unity of purpose. So could you write key words that should be in your vision statement? They can be words, they can be half sentences, or they could be key pieces of a whole sentence. Your mission statement. which is a broad statement of what the organisation will do in pursuit of its vision. So your homework is to list out the key words that should be in your mission statement. Again, they could be individual words or they could be sections of a whole sentence. The third piece of homework is to look at your values, to look at the underpinning beliefs of your organisation in relation to the work to be done, and list out your key values. Now, this might be the easiest one to start with, and here we are looking for individual words, really. So yes, values, often an organisation will know their values before they know their project vision or their mission statement. So yeah, maybe let's turn that on its head. Let's look at your values first and pull out the keywords for that. So that is the end of my presentation. I'm actually going to send with the presentation notes a little link to a short film from a church in Hove, which also explains that kind of vision, mission and values, but rather than explaining it to academically, it explains it to their congregation, and I thought it was a great example too. But please, I would also recommend that you do this piece of homework and just start on developing your vision, mission and values. So we might have time for questions here, for burning questions, or I'm happy to kind of look at the end of the session.
Great, thanks. Thank you, Jane. Yeah, there aren't any questions at the moment, so that's absolutely fine. But yeah, thanks for that, for setting us off and reminding everybody that, you know, we do need to have a vision. We need to be clear about what we are doing and why we're doing it, what's it for. That was really helpful. I love the way you did about the hallware and thinking about the way you were talking about it, not just in a more inspiring way. So that's brilliant, thank you. So we're going to move on to Daniel now, who's going to help us a bit more as we move forward in thinking about, right, what do we do next? How do we start thinking about a plan for this project? Thank you, Daniel.
Great, thanks, Liz. I'll just share my screen. Everyone can see that okay? Yeah, perfect. Hi everyone, my name is Daniel. I work with Liz and Jane. I'm the project worker at Transformation Cornwall, and in this presentation I'm going to be talking a little bit about the fundamentals, the core principles of project planning and project management that might be able to help you in getting your projects off the ground. So when it comes to project management, I think it's a bit scary sometimes. There are lots of different buzzwords, Prince2, waterfall, agile, and actually you can pay a lot of money to go on these courses that teach you all about how to manage your project successfully. I think the last I checked, if you wanted to go on a Prince2 course, it would cost you thousands of pounds. And my experience of these highly corporate approaches to project management is that there's huge value to them, but actually they can sometimes be a little bit off-putting. They can make it seem like putting a project together is just for people that have done all this training. It's just for people that know how to use all the right buzzwords, and I don't think that's the case at all. I think that from most of these different approaches, you can kind of boil it down to some core principles, some core ideas. And for most people, most projects, that's going to involve ideas, it's going to involve timescales, it's going to involve funding, and it's going to involve a little bit of evaluation. So in this presentation, I'm going to be going through 6 key principles, which I think help when it comes to planning and executing your project. And I'll be going through them one by one. We'll start off with idea, then objectives, the plan, funding, execution, and then evaluation. So starting right at the beginning with idea and vision, this is where some of the things that Jane's been talking about will come into play. So really it's sitting down with your project team and saying, okay, what is our project trying to achieve in the broadest terms? What are we trying to do here? Who are our beneficiaries? Who's going to engage with us? What is it we're trying to bring to them? What is it we're doing here? And then after that, it's coming up for some options of how you could make a difference. So we have this idea. How is it we're going to do that? For example, we want to set up a toddler group. What might that look like? Is that just for this age group we're going for? Is it for a wider group? Is it just for our local community? Are we aiming a little bit wider? And at this stage, I think it's always really important to take your options to your community for feedback. So sometimes when we sit down to think about our idea and vision and how we might approach a problem, we can tend to sort problems out in ways that our community perhaps doesn't actually want us to, or in ways that actually don't address the exact problem. So I think when setting out your idea and vision, it's always really important to take your vision to your community, see what they think, see if they have any ideas of what you could do here. So once you've got an idea and a vision for what you'll be doing in the broadest terms and who your beneficiaries are, the next step, I suppose, is to think about how you're actually going to bring that together. What are the bolts, the different constituent elements that are going to bring your project journey to fruition? And one of the most useful ways I find to look at this is through something called a user story or a project journey. And that's basically where you get together with your team and you whack out all the different elements that's going to put your project together. If you were a user of this project, if you are the person that's coming to it, what is it that the journey looks like? And then underneath that, what is it that needs to happen for that to come together? So for example, I've given out a very basic user story here of community cooking lessons. Along the top there, we can see the story. So before our project can take place, we're going to need to advertise it to the community. We're going to book participants into the course. Participants will arrive for a session. They'll be provided with ingredients. They'll be provided with the lesson, etc. And underneath that in orange, you can see that I've started to think about all the different requirements that it will take to bring that story to fruition. So for example, to advertise it, we're going to need capacity to design flyers. We're going to need to post on social media. We're going to need to advertise via a website, for example. To book participants into a course, well, what is it we're going to need for that to come to fruition? There's going to be a requirement for a booking process, etc. And after you've done this, it's also a good idea to identify, I guess, pain points. What is it, that's going to make these things particularly difficult? Advertising. Are we going to have to think about online advertisement and sort of physical advertisement in the community? Who is it we're trying to reach? Are they all online? Are they not? So here's a picture from a time I used to work at the Office for National Statistics, and it's blurred out, but what you'll see underneath there is a whole bunch of post-it notes. When we were coming together to start planning out the system for the census and how respondents would answer the census, what we did was we got a brown piece of paper on a wall and lots of post-it notes, and we literally mapped out the user story journey for someone that was going to answer the census. What were the steps that someone would have to go to in order to respond? And then underneath them, in more post-it notes, what is it that needs to be in place in order for that to happen? What are the pain points? What's going to make it difficult? And then visually, we were able to see our project journey and all the different requirements that were going to need to take place. Now, a good project plan. Once you have an idea of the requirements, what it's going to take to bring your project to fruition, you might want to start thinking about a plan. And that's where you take all these requirements and these needs to bring your project to fruition, and you start putting them against a timescale. Who is going to be doing this? When are we going to be doing this? For example, you might want to have a team or a person that is in charge of looking at the building options, another that's going to be in charge of looking at advertisement and social media. And then you're going to want to assign these against timescales. When will you need to have these arrangements in place? I think it's sometimes helpful to assign chunks of work to 2 to 3 week periods. Because if you say, I've got 6 months to do this, it can become a little bit more wavy and difficult to keep track of it. And it's also helpful to see how different parts of your project link into each other. It's a good idea to touch base with your team to see where you are, see how timescales are going, see what's difficult, what might need a little bit more thought, what might need changed, and regularly update the project plan. Just because you've made a timetable doesn't mean it can't change. Sometimes people get a bit scared if they haven't got something exactly to time, if something's going to overrun, but actually that happens when you're putting a project together. So there is a little visual indication of what a project plan might look like. Some people like to use Gantt charts. Some people like to use Excel. Some people might like, physical pen and paper and a whiteboard. Essentially, what you want to map out is, what is it we're trying to do? When does it need to be done by? And how will that then, who's doing it? And how will that facilitate us bringing our project to fruition? In the world of digital technology, there are lots of really good online timetable makers, Gantt chart makers that can help you map these things out visually. Or if you're more visual, as I showed a couple of slides ago, you can also do it with post-it notes on a whiteboard. It's going to be whatever works for your team, what helps you keep track of that. I guess the next step is funding. Once you have a slightly clearer idea of what it is you're trying to do, when you're going to need to do it by, and what the different constituent elements of that are going to be, you might want to start thinking about how are you going to fund that. So what are the associated costs with each of the tasks and elements of what you're trying to do? And how will you meet those project costs? For example, will you do direct fundraising? Are you going to go out to your community and raise funds in that way? Are you going to apply to different grants? Or are you going to do a mixture of the two? And here's where Transformation Cornwall and Meet the Funders can really help. So if you came along to the spring event, you might have got posted a physical little resource document with lots of funding tips in there, also available on our website. You can also approach us for some one-on-one help. Jane, myself, Liz will be more than happy to chat to you about the different funding sources. And all of that will probably come together in a budget. It's going to be quite important for you, especially when approaching funders, to have a budget about what things are going to cost. It doesn't need to be perfect. Some things might be become clearer as the project develops. Perhaps your PCC treasurer, people like that in your group can help you with that. Great. I guess we've rushed through this really quickly in 15 minutes, the life cycle of a project. But as with any project, once you've done all this hard work planning it and funding it, you want to execute the project. You want to bring something to your community. And I guess the top tip that I would give here is, it's better to start with the minimum viable service than overplan and deliver nothing. Things never run to perfection. There's always going to be things that change. And if we get really caught up in delivering something that's perfect, perhaps we'll overplan and deliver nothing. So, take what you have to your community, consider a small scale rollout at first, and keep communicating with your users. What's working? What could be changed? How is the future looking? And I guess that takes us into the sixth point of my very quick brush through, which is follow-up. So once you've got started and you're doing your project, I think it's a good idea to meet with your team at regular intervals to examine the project. And I guess hold yourself not accountable, but hold yourself against the vision and the mission that you developed. Are you delivering on this vision? What do your beneficiaries say? And what do they think about what you're doing? Are there any blockers, things that are making your project difficult? How can you address them? But also at the same time, celebrate success. Once you've opened, opened a community building, once you've started a toddler group, you've done something really big there, actually. And I think it's really important to celebrate success and come together and reflect positively on what you've brought to your community. Any questions? Don't think there are. I'll just quickly share my screen before I hand back over to you, Liz. I've tried to distill some of these points into this little infographic, which basically goes through those six stages. Of course, no one PowerPoint or infographic will ever completely address the huge topic that is project planning. But this will be sent out with the post-event mail out.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Daniel. That's brilliant. Really helpful And one of the things that struck me as well was talking about having that team, having other people to be accountable to, in a sense. I know personally for myself, I'm somebody that's a bit of a procrastinator, and actually it would, you know, on a project, it's always good to have someone else that you can meet with regularly, even if you haven't got a team. We've had a few people from parishes saying we're too small to have a team, but actually there should always be one other person indeed that you could kind of at least be able to talk to or share your ideas and what you're doing with. And as I say, in my case, it would always be helpful to think, oh, I'm seeing Jane next week, so I need to, I said to her last time I was going to get this done by then, and I get it done. If I wasn't meeting Jane, it wouldn't be done for another fortnight or whatever, something else would happen. So you know, it does help, doesn't it, to have those other people. And I think probably Heather's going to tell us a little bit as well about how with her team as well is very much part of that. Great to see that Heather's got a whiteboard behind her. Is that for the project, Heather? Hi. Is that your project whiteboard?
No, this is just one aspect of my work, because I'm the ops manager. I do all kinds of things, but I also coordinate the pastoral team, and so the whiteboard actually is more about that at the moment.
Yeah, okay.
It changes.
Yes, you've got a lot on, Heather.
Yes,
well,
a lot.
Great, thank you. Well, welcome, Heather. Thank you ever so much for joining us today. We always have our section called Experts Through Experience, as we do find that anybody that has taken on a project will always find that by the end of it, they've learned an awful lot through it and are just brilliant for sharing with everyone else what they found, what they discovered, what they learned, and with their good tips. So now you had your vision, didn't you, for this old pub in the middle of St Austell by the church, to use that as a community centre. Before we talk to you, I think it would be good, we'll watch the video, because there's a short video explaining the whole project. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Lovely. Thanks, Daniel. Daniel's going to share that for us.
Great. I'll just load that now, no worries.
We'll keep talking. Oh, there we go. That's fine. Here it comes.
So here we are outside the what will be the Trinity Centre, and we're really excited because so far, as you can see, we've created piles of rubble. In fact, the guys there working are doing really well. We've stripped out the whole of the building. So if you put your head inside the building behind me, you'd see right up to the rafters and the loft where Leslie and all the Soul Life will be having fun and hijinks. Where we're up to is, this is phase one. So far we've raised nearly £500,000, and we need about double that in terms of the total project cost. 1.2 million, so just a little bit more than a little bit less than halfway at the moment. So what we're really hoping for is this to be a community centre where the town will come. There'll be a good quality cafe, there'll be meeting rooms, and also of course church events, and we're hoping it will be a hub where people can come and find obviously the message of Jesus in our community and the way we relate to each other.
Hi, I am really excited about everything that's going ahead with the Trinity Centre. If you look up at the top floor there, that is going to be a big room that we can do children's ministry on a Sunday morning. It's a fantastic room, and looking forward to getting it all decorated and ready. And then on the other side at the very top is what we can use for impact and other youth events. Thinking about calling it the loft maybe, but it's a super room with all the eaves and it looks amazing. So in addition to those things, can't wait for the cafe to be open, to be able to invite people. When we have toddlers, I see it as a natural thing just to be able to stroll across and go for cake and coffee, more cake and coffee, after we've gathered. So, so much potential, so much to look forward to.
I'm so excited for all that the Trinity Centre is going to mean for young adults and really the ministry that I've been called here to do for the church. It really strikes me as a place that's going to offer so much opportunity in terms of all of the things that we can do for gatherings. You know, I can see us doing open mic nights in the coffee shop. I can see us running young adults games nights, book clubs. In the very top space is a kind of loft area, and I'd love us to do loft worship nights, really intimate places to encounter Jesus together in prayer and through spiritual gifts. So yeah, I'm just so excited to really see all this work come to fruition.
I'm very excited about our Trinity project because it's about our church right here in the middle of St Austell, reaching out to the community and providing a cafe and meeting rooms which will be a hub for all of us and which will build up our community together.
So we'd love you to be involved. We'd love you to be able to give, but also to pray, support and talk up this project. So it's the Trinity Centre, it's here in St Austell, and the rubble is growing.
Thank you. Well, I enjoyed that. That was a great little video. Brilliant idea as well, isn't it? About putting an idea together in a short video to explain to people as well what's going on. Anyway, Heather, lovely. Now, tell us about the vision then, how that all started off.
Well, it did start before we actually had the building. So we had been looking at our church, and if you know St Austell, the parish church is on a bit of an island site really, with railings all around, and half of it is quite raised above the street level, and it felt very closed off indeed from the community. So our vision started with wanting to open up everything to the community and to show that we are there for the community, wanting to share our faith. And alongside the Trinity Centre, we're also making changes to the church inside itself, the interior. We are reordering the whole seating and putting the pews on wheels and, you know, just making it a really usable space. So the two things go together. We've also taken down our railings and put in glass doors. So it's all part of the same, opening up to the community. The vision to get the Trinity Centre, though, developed over time, because as we had this vision to open up the community, we were very keen to know what God wanted us to do and how we could develop this. And so this sort of cultural change that we had within our congregation was really important, because we wanted it to be not something which was carried just by the vicar and a few keen people. You know, it needed to be a vision that was totally owned by the congregation. So we had lots of teaching and prayer, and our small groups thought about what we were doing, what was our reason for being, and all of those kind of questions to develop the vision. And then suddenly the building opposite became available, an old pub, and then next door to that joined on an empty hairdresser's. So it's a massive building. And suddenly we prayed about this, and we felt that this was just an amazing opportunity God had put before us. And we felt so strongly that it was actually God's vision for us that we did take a leap of faith, really, and we bought the building outright, which cost us about nearly £300,000, using up an awful lot, most of our reserves actually. And then from there, we developed the vision further as to how we were going to use the building, how we would develop the funding and all of that kind of stuff. But alongside opening up the church itself. So the two things together.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. And that's so important, isn't it, to get the whole church community on board actually, and it's sort of it's not just one person's idea, one person's vision, it's a church community, or idea.
Yes.
And consulting the community. Did you talk to the community of St Austell?
Not a massive amount to the community at that stage, because we really wanted to get the whole vision thoroughly grounded in our congregation, because it's such a big project. If it wasn't really owned by the congregation in general, it would not have worked. Yeah. And so we spent a lot of time, including things like a parish weekend when plans were laid forward and all kinds of ideas were being able to put forward by members of the congregation. And we looked at all kinds of different angles. So we looked at the heritage of our church. We're grade 1 listed. We thought about our gospel outreach, our welcome, not just on Sundays, but generally to the town. All these different aspects came together so that we felt that the culture of our whole congregation was outward looking, and also willing to make changes, because everything's changed actually, and in the process of more changes happening.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's amazing as well, isn't it? It's a bit like the pebble being dropped in a pool as well. It's as the kind of ripples go out, and with your church congregation, as they are being envisioned with the vision in a sense, and the project as well. We don't know, do we, that all the people they know, so the ripples go out so much further, and how they're in a sense thinking of funding, for example. People take it on board, don't they, when they own the vision in a sense. And
yes, and we're certainly at that stage now, so that we have developed a good relationship with the St Austell Voice newspaper, and so they come and regularly take photographs and do editorials about what's going on, and they're very enthusiastic. And we're also developing very close links with the town council and our local Green, White, Gold Festival people, and using the church. And the amazing thing is that now people have got the idea of what the church is doing and wanting to be open to the community. We are now being approached by community groups saying, oh, would you like to do this, and could we do this? So it's coming together, but it's taken quite a long time to get to that point.
And that's probably a good tip, isn't it? Don't expect things to happen very, very quickly with these sort of projects. They do take time, don't they, to develop. Now, you're also the project manager, aren't you?
Well, I'm more sort of a coordinator in a way. Yeah, I mean, I'm on the the core team for that. So the church ward, one of the church wardens and we also have a surveyor, a charter surveyor, who is a member of our congregation, who we employ. So there are the three of us who together are the client representatives. Because it's such a big project, we actually employ project management company to manage the actual building. So we have weekly meetings with them, in fact, quite often daily meetings, and with the architects, and there are all kinds of building control issues. Because it's such a large project, we didn't have the expertise to do that ourselves. And to be honest, if we had tried, we would have failed. So it was quite a big decision to say, we're going to employ proper architects, proper project managers, and they will do all the sort of nitty-gritty stuff. It would be totally beyond us to do that, but of course we have to pay.
Yes, but worth it in the end for that. But then also the fact that actually, like you say, you're still involved with it on a day-to-day.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is so important, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
Keep things on track.
Yes.
Great. So we've only got a couple of minutes left before we do questions and stuff. What would be your biggest tip or recommendation you'd want to share with people about whether it's the vision or the project plan or whatever?
Well, I would say it's absolutely vital to get your congregation behind it, not just in theory, but actually to pray through each stage, especially if it's a big project. We need ongoing financial support. So we've got lots of pledges. We had gift days. We're going to be having another one later. It's absolutely vital that they get the vision for what it is about. It's not some kind of sideline, but it's actually central to who we are. And so everything that we've put into developing that vision and really grounding it has been, I would say, the thing that has brought us to this stage and which will carry us through, hopefully.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, thank you. That's great. Now, I'm wondering if there are any questions anybody's got for you, or for Jane or for Daniel from earlier as well. Or Jane and Daniel, have you got a question for Heather?
Thank you, Heather, and thank you, Daniel, as well. It's quite interesting for me because I guess one of my passions is that idea of vision. And at Transformation Cornwall, you know, I kind of rattled off, you know, what our vision is: to see faith at the heart of flourishing communities in Cornwall. And I also, our mission is to strengthen faith-based social action in Cornwall. And it's quite fun. Well, it's been noticeable, you know, since we've gone to COVID, and I'm in a number of Zooms, and often people won't know who Transformation Cornwall is. And I will always say our mission, and you know, I've kind of had my leg pulled about saying, my name's Jane Yeomans, I'm from Transformation Cornwall. We strengthen faith-based social action in Cornwall. And it is quite funny. But I don't have the benefit of saying, well, I'm from the Trussell Trust, and everybody going, oh yeah, I know who that is, or I'm from Truro, the Diocese of Truro, and people going, I know who that is. And for me, it's always really clear, really worthwhile to get everybody within that team saying the exact same vision and the exact same mission, and actually writing it down. It is really, really helpful. And, you know, that's what I'd really like for our delegates as well, the importance of actually agreeing that vision, writing it down. It is spring cleaning that saves you the housework, you know, nibbling away at the housework throughout your project journey.
Yeah. Perhaps I could just say that our sort of overall vision is searching for God's heart and sharing what we find. And so our Trinity project has developed from that. But, you know, just even getting everyone to understand that we first search for God's heart, you know, is challenging sometimes.
Yes. Well, that is what's supposed to be, your vision is supposed to be challenging. And, you know, it's always there in the future, you know, even when the building is built and everybody's in and eating cake, and it will always be your vision for, you know, 5 years after that. Yeah. That's helpful.
So we've had a couple of questions come through. The first one is, I think that might be an auto-generated username, so I won't try and pronounce it. It's, what is the criteria for the need to acquire a faculty for all these projects? Our project is to the church roof. Oh, from Joan. And I think I'll ask Liz to comment on that one as well. But I think in the first instance, if this is Diocese of Truro, it would be contact Sue Thorold at the diocese, who can help you on that. The criteria will depend on the grade listing and I guess the extent of work that's being done. But a lot of churches' experiences, I think, has been working with Sue that, you know, there's a culture of trying to say yes and trying to encourage churches to move forward with their ministry. Liz, did you want to comment on that one?
No, you're absolutely right there, Daniel. Just drop Sue Thorold an email and ask her that question, and she'll let you know.
Great. Second question for John, and I think, oh, sorry, go Jane.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say we can put Sue's contact details in that follow-up email to everybody.
Yeah.
Yes. And second question, I think, Heather, this would be a great one for you, is from John, and it's thoughts on balancing the vision of the church to support members and evangelism with supporting the community, which is seen by some as not church.
That's a complicated one, really, in one sense, but it's about who we are. So we've been recently doing a series called a fruitfulness on the front line. And so all of us as a congregation have been through this. And so we see everything, every contact that we make as being our front line. So we try and encourage everyone to get that vision, so that whether it's in the community or whether it's part of the congregation, we are always outward looking, and as we have searched for God's heart, then we share what we find. That sums it up, really. That may not be the kind of answer that you're expecting, I don't know. But in a minute, that's all I could say, I think.
If I can just
yes,
add in, sorry, if I can just add into that kind of evangelism and you know, supporting the vision of the church to support the community and the idea of evangelism. I have a great I had the great privilege to be talking to the Salvation Army. I think it was the Southwest Leaders Lunch quite recently, and Steve White, who is the, I think, forgive me, I was just quickly looking for his title, and he said, what we need to do for our church is just open the door of our church, make sure that we've got the kettle on and plenty of cake, and that was his idea of evangelism, and I absolutely understand that. You know, you find out about the heart of God by showing and experiencing the heart of the church, and that heart of the church is often found in a slice of Victoria sponge and certainly in a cup of tea. It's tricky, and actually it's very difficult to describe, but you know, I really love the idea from Steve, just sling open the doors and put the kettle on.
I'm reminded of the quote that says, the church is the only club that's there for the benefit of not the people in it, for people outside the club. And I think sometimes people in church forget that it's about mission. It's not about them, actually.
I think to add to that as well, I think there are varied expressions of mission, aren't they? You know, sometimes we don't see giving someone a piece of cake as evangelism or mission, but actually in the example of Jesus himself, he came to fulfill spiritual needs, but also to feed people and clothe them. Great, that's the end of the questions that we've had in the chat, which is perfect because we're coming up to time. So in closing this session, just a few points to remind ourselves of is one, after this session, probably tomorrow, we'll email around the presentations, the links, the attachment infographic about the project planning, and we'll also email out the details for the next community workshop, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. It'd be great to have you all there. And I'll just quickly check my list to see if there's anything that I'm forgetting. No, the only other thing to say is that we have a bunch of great resources that we put together for the spring event. There was a resource document and also some helpful cards that talked about who your team is, what your vision is. I'll also be sure to attach the link into that with the mail out, which might prove helpful to some of our attendees today. Anything else from any of the panelists?
No, I'm good. I mean, as I say, you know, we don't have tea and cake, but the door is always open. You know, this Meet the Funders programme, you know, from both Transformation Common and the Diocese of Truro. So just get in touch with any question. No question is too big, too small, too stupid. You know, we just want to kind of hear about it. Thank you.
And thank you very much to Heather for joining us, particularly today. Really appreciate you coming, Heather. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy your lunchtimes, and hopefully we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.